Struggle has a strange way of stripping life down to its essence. When things are going well, when comfort surrounds us, we tend to drift. We fill our days with noise, social approval, shallow distractions, endless busyness that feels like progress but often leads nowhere. It is only when we collide with difficulty that all of this begins to peel away. Struggle has a way of forcing honesty upon us. It takes away illusions. It takes away false priorities, and in doing so, it creates clarity. Think about a time in your life when you went through something painful, losing a job, failing in a relationship, or hitting a wall in your ambitions. In that moment, what mattered? Was it the gossip, the opinions, the external trophies? Or was it something deeper, something more lasting? In struggle, we begin to see the world without filters. We realize which desires were real and which were borrowed from others. We recognize which goals came from within us and which were handed down by society. Struggle acts like a fire that burns away everything that is not essential, leaving behind only the truth. When you are struggling, you don't have the luxury of pretending. You cannot afford to keep up appearances. You are too busy surviving, too busy facing what is in front of you. And that rawness, that confrontation with reality, is where clarity emerges. Suddenly you realize how little you actually need to feel alive. Suddenly you see who truly stands by you and who is only there for convenience. Suddenly you notice how much time you wasted chasing things that never mattered. This clarity is not pleasant in the beginning. It feels harsh, like being stripped naked in the cold. But once you endure it, you begin to understand it as a gift. Most people spend their lives running from struggle because it feels uncomfortable. But what they are really running from is clarity. They are afraid of seeing who they are without the masks, without the props, without the applause. They prefer the comfort of illusions because illusions can be soothing, yet illusions also keep you weak. They keep you dependent. They make you fragile in a world that requires resilience. Struggle takes those illusions away, sometimes violently, but always truthfully. And when you see clearly, your decisions change. You no longer chase every opportunity just because it looks shiny. You no longer attach yourself to people who drain you because you've already seen what it feels like to stand alone. You no longer trade your time for things that don't align with who you really are because the struggle has shown you how valuable and short life actually is. Struggle builds clarity by showing you the cost of confusion. When you are confused about your purpose, confused about your values, confused about who you are, struggle exposes it immediately. You can fake confidence when life is easy. You cannot fake it when life is pressing down on you. It is often said that hard times create strong people, but what is strength really? It is not physical power, and it is not even emotional toughness in the usual sense. True strength is the ability to see clearly and act accordingly. Strength is the refusal to lie to yourself. Strength is the courage to accept what is, rather than cling to what you wish it would be. Struggle builds this strength by forcing you to live in reality. Clarity is rare because it is costly. It requires that you lose things, illusions, relationships, comforts, even identities you thought were permanent. But every loss in struggle is actually an opening. It creates space for you to see yourself as you are, and once you have clarity, you gain power, the power to focus, the power to choose wisely, the power to stop scattering your energy across meaningless pursuits and instead direct it toward what truly matters. When you look back on your life, the periods you grew the most were never the periods of ease. They were the times when you were tested, when you were brought to the edge of what you thought you could endure. In those times you learned what was real, you learned who you are. That is the gift of struggle. It builds clarity, and clarity, once earned, is something you never fully lose. So the next time life places you in a difficult position, don't just ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask, "What is this trying to show me?" Because hidden inside every struggle is the chance to see yourself, your life, and your purpose with fresh eyes, and that vision is priceless. Struggle is not just something to be endured. It is something that can be transformed into leverage. Leverage means that the work you put in today multiplies tomorrow. It means that every challenge you overcome, every difficulty you navigate, becomes a force you can use later to move faster, to make better decisions, to create a life with more freedom. People often look for leverage in money, in tools, in technology, or in connections. But the most powerful leverage is built quietly inside you through struggle. Think about the skills you've learned in the hardest moments of your life. Maybe you were forced to work long hours for little reward, and it taught you discipline. Maybe you faced rejection again and again, and it taught you persistence. Maybe you made mistakes that cost you dearly, and they taught you judgment. None of these lessons come free. They are purchased with sweat, with frustration, with failure. But once you've paid that price, you now own an asset that nobody can take from you. That is leverage. Struggle transformed into strength that compounds for the rest of your life. The beauty of leverage created through struggle is that it scales. A single lesson you learn deeply, often painfully, becomes applicable across countless situations. If you learn resilience from one failure, you can use it in every failure that follows. If you learn patience from one disappointment, you can apply it in every area of your life. This is why some people seem to move effortlessly through challenges while others collapse at the first obstacle. It's not luck, it's not natural talent, it's leverage, the kind of leverage you only earn by walking through the fire. Struggle also creates leverage because it forces you to adapt. When the easy path is blocked, you are pushed to invent new paths. You are forced to be creative, to think differently, to develop resourcefulness. A person who has always had things handed to them will struggle when the road changes because they lack the muscles built by necessity. But someone who has faced hardship after hardship carries with them a toolkit of responses. They have learned how to pivot, how to endure, how to keep going when others stop. That adaptability is a form of leverage. It multiplies your ability to survive and thrive in an unpredictable world. It's important to understand that leverage is not about brute force. It is not about working harder than everyone else. It is about using the struggles you've endured as a force multiplier. Think of an investor who loses money in their first ventures but learns from those losses. Eventually, they make wiser investments, and those choices pay off far more than the initial failures ever cost. The early struggles became leverage for smarter decisions. Or think of a person who struggled with poor health, who had to rebuild themselves step by step. That experience becomes leverage. They now carry discipline, empathy, and awareness of the body that others may never develop. The pain that once felt meaningless becomes a foundation for power. The paradox is that in the moment, struggle doesn't feel like leverage. It feels like weakness, like loss, like failure. You rarely realize its value while you are in it, but years later, you look back and see that the difficult times gave you the tools to succeed. They gave you leverage in ways you could never have predicted. The mistake most people make is trying to avoid struggle at all costs. In doing so, they avoid the very experiences that could have given them power. Leverage created through struggle is also humbling. It reminds you that growth does not come from comfort. Comfort can only maintain what already exists. Struggle builds something new. Every entrepreneur, every artist, every leader who has achieved something meaningful has a story of struggle behind them. Without it, they would have had no leverage to push forward, no wisdom to draw upon, no strength to multiply. So when you are in the middle of difficulty, remember, this is not wasted time, this is not punishment. This is the investment period, the silent building of leverage. You may not see the return immediately, but the lessons are compounding. They are gathering interest inside you, waiting for the right moment to be deployed. One day, you will find yourself moving with surprising ease in situations that would break others, and you will realize that the leverage you carry was born from the struggles you endured. The world rewards those who create leverage, and the surest way to build it is through struggle. Every hardship you survive adds to your reservoir of tools, insights, and strengths. This is how the weak become strong, how the ordinary become extraordinary, not by avoiding struggle, but by using it. Struggle creates leverage, and leverage builds the future. Freedom is a word people chase their entire lives, yet very few ever find it. Most think freedom comes from money, from status, from comfort, from eliminating all problems. But the truth is, freedom is not about removing every obstacle. It's about transforming your relationship with obstacles. Struggle is the teacher of this lesson. Through struggle, you discover a form of freedom that no external achievement can give you, the freedom from fear, from dependence, and from illusion. When life is easy, freedom feels like a luxury you can postpone. You don't think deeply about it because you're distracted by pleasure, by convenience, by everything going your way. But when you struggle, when you lose something important, when you are forced to confront pain, when you face rejection or failure, suddenly you see how fragile that sense of control really was. Struggle shakes you awake. It shows you how little you actually control in the outside world, and paradoxically, that realization is the beginning of real freedom, because once you stop clinging to control, you start to discover peace in surrender. Struggle teaches freedom because it forces you to detach. You lose a job, and you realize you are not your job. You lose approval, and you realize you are not the opinions of others. You lose comforts, and you realize how little you actually need to live. Every loss strips away an attachment you once thought was essential, and each time something is taken from you, you find a deeper layer of yourself that cannot be touched. That layer, that inner core, is where freedom lives. Most people live as prisoners, not of others, but of themselves. They are chained to their desires, to their fears, to their need for validation. They think freedom will arrive when everything around them is perfect. But struggle proves otherwise. Struggle shows you that even when things are imperfect, even when you are surrounded by uncertainty, you can still find a kind of liberation within. You discover that freedom is not the absence of problems. It is the ability to move through problems without being broken by them. When you have struggled and survived, fear begins to lose its power over you. The worst has happened, and yet you are still here. What more can the world take from you? Once you've faced hardship and endured, you stop living in constant anxiety about what might go wrong. You have already seen things go wrong, and you learned that you are capable of enduring them. This makes you dangerous in the best way, not reckless, but unafraid, and this fearlessness is freedom. Struggle also teaches freedom by giving you perspective. Before hardship, you may believe you need endless things to be happy. Luxuries, recognition, a certain lifestyle. But in struggle, you are forced to live with less, and you realize, surprisingly, that you can still be alive, still be aware, still find moments of joy even with very little. That realization frees you from the endless chase of accumulation. You stop being enslaved by the idea that happiness is always somewhere else, in some future you must earn. You see that freedom is available in the present, once you stop attaching yourself to every condition. This is why so many people who appear successful from the outside still feel trapped. They never learned freedom through struggle. They avoided the lessons of pain, and so they built their lives around fragile foundations. The first sign of loss or rejection shakes them to the core, because they have not built the inner independence that comes from surviving difficulty. Struggle, on the other hand, makes you anti-fragile. It doesn't just make you strong, it makes you free, because once you've walked through the fire, the small sparks of daily life no longer scare you. True freedom is not given, it is earned. It is earned through the courage to face struggle without running away. It is earned through the acceptance that life will always be uncertain, and yet you can still choose peace within it. Every challenge you survive loosens the chains a little more. Every hardship you face teaches you that freedom is not outside, it is within. So when you encounter struggle, do not curse it. Do not see it as an enemy. See it as a teacher. It is showing you what you are capable of without the illusions, without the crutches, without the attachments. It is stripping away everything false so you can experience the truth, that freedom is not a destination, but a way of being. Struggle teaches freedom because it teaches you that nothing outside you can truly control you, not fear, not loss, not failure. And when you understand that, you are finally free.